previously on The Fallen.
Well, that went as well as expected.
Aye, if you say so, you better pray to God they've no looked through the bag yet. We've no idea where they've even gone.
No, the mission's a total failure. Harper's dead, and so is Abbot. We're gonna push on and head to Greyfriars. Are you guys okay?
Why are you being over dramatic? Come on!
Rog, you know as well as I do, I don't stand a chance. Just let me do something heroic, eh? I'll make you choke on the fucking rest of it!
Abbot lay on the hard floor of a train. The roof was gone, replaced with the twisted metal of a burnt-out helicopter which hung precariously over the metal tube. Rubble and girders littered the floor around him. As he slowly moved, he managed to stand up, his body crying out in pain as his muscles recovered from the shock of hitting the ground hard. As he dusted himself off, he looked around his surroundings to find that he was standing in a crumpled train. The seats, once bright blue, were now covered in dust, burnt, and the plastic had melted. He tried to peer through the window into the station, but the dust that covered the scratched plastic of the window made it nearly impossible to see out of.
Harper! Harpy! Fuck's sake! Pete! Danny! For God's sake, I'm not dead. Hello! Ah, shit. Radio. Bravo to Charlie. Come in, Charlie. Charlie, come in, for God's sake. Pete, you fucking moron. Answer the goddamn radio. What's the point of telling us to use the bastard things if you're not going to respond to us? Oh, Jesus Christ, Glenn, what have you gotten yourself into?
He removed the torch from below his rifle, which had clattered a few feet away from him, and he shone the light around him, the beam breaking the darkness, illuminating the walls of the train, the morphed seats casting shadows through the darkness. He slowly limped through the shell of the train, his footsteps echoing through the darkness, the beam from his torch bouncing with every step. He reached the end of the compartment, and the door had been blasted open, leading down to the twisted metal of the track, which was still smouldering. An orange glow emanated from the darkness. He could feel the heat exuding from the melted track. He gently climbed down from the train, placing his hand on the dirty rubble-covered floor of the train, lowering himself down. Slowly he crept through the dark tunnel, his rifle raised to his face, the beam of light breaking the thick smoke that filled the tunnel. In the distance he could hear the low guttural growls from the dead, getting louder with every step. Eventually he could see the flickering light ahead, illuminating the tunnel like a beacon in a storm, almost directing him to safety or danger. He wasn't quite sure. With every fibre of his being telling him not to go towards the light, he knew it may be his only chance to get out of the tunnel and back to relative safety. As he approached, he could see the platform stretch out in front of him, the platform stained with large puddles of blood smeared over the concrete. He put his hand to his nose as the stench of death and rot filled his nostrils, nausea clawing at his stomach. He climbed onto the platform and found himself facing the main terminal of the train station, and his jaw dropped as he witnessed over 200 walking corpses bumping into each other. The noise of groaning and growling, high-pitched cries was deafening, and the stench was sickening. Quickly he threw himself behind a pillar which barely covered his skeletal form, but he felt protected by the stone structure. He paused for a moment, making a decision, then he turned from the pillar and faced the dead again. As he turned, his rifle in hand, he started to notice that the creatures were slowly making their way up the ramp and out of the station, towards the city, towards Pete and Danny and the others, toward Atlantis. As the herd moved away, he began to inch closer, keeping his eyes trained on the sight of his rifle, watching the dead for any sudden movements. Eventually there was enough space for him to see the station, and he could see what he had come all the way down here to find. A small stash of large boxes, black, opened, and piles of ammunition and medicine spewed out on the dirt-covered marble floor. stashes of food piled next to them, but still too many corpses for his liking. Then he saw it. A small metal box, battered and cracked, laying in the middle of the dead. The box that he'd been tasked to find. The box which would change his future forever. But how was he going to get it? How was he going to get through the shuffling bodies, the keepers of the box, the guards to his future? He slowly leant against the pillar, staring into the crowd, thinking of the way to get his prize.
Oh, shit. Abbot, you fucking legend, you found it. Oh, but how in God's name am I gonna get to the bloody thing? Think. Fuck it. Abbot to Atlantis.
Atlantis receiving. Abbot. Kirkman said you were dead. I'm very pleased to see that's not the case.
It takes more than a 20-foot fall to kill me, sir. And anyway, that little shit didn't even bother to check. Probably glad I'm out of the picture.
Yes. Are you safe? Where are you?
I'm currently standing in the middle of Waverly Station, with my eyes on the box, sir. But there's a problem.
Well, of course there is. Nothing's ever that simple now, is it? So, what seems to be the issue?
The issue is, there is a fuck ton of infected surrounding it. There's no way I can get to it.
Work it out, Abbot. That's why I chose you for this task. Someone who uses their initiative to get the job done.
Yeah, but you don't understand, sir. There's... shit. Shit, I've been spotted.
One of the dead, a large woman wearing a National Rail uniform, slowly turned and looked at Abbot's direction, peering through the darkness, trying to focus its lifeless pale eyes on something hiding there, cowering. Her jaw chewed at the air as if munching on an invisible steak. Saliva and blood oozed out of her decaying mouth. She grunted a low snort and slowly shuffled towards him, her legs buckling as she tried to walk with a broken shin, shards of bone protruding out of her skin. As she limped into the darkness, Abbot heard another grunt from her large form, followed by a grunt coming from another, a younger-looking skinny man. His jugular missing, tendrils of bloody muscle hanging down from his neck, his chest stained black. He wore a blue polo shirt and black trousers, turned and grunted to the larger woman, and started to head in Abbot's direction. The skinny man turned his head, his spine crackling. He opened his mouth and a deep guttural cry emanated from his throat, loud and gargled. He turned back to Abbot, his lifeless eyes trained on him. More corpses turned to join the pair. Their hunger-fueled growls gargled from their throats. For a moment, Abbot was in awe.
Are they communicating? What the fuck?
He didn't have time to think. He needed to get away from the oncoming horrors. He looked to his right, nothing but mangled track. To his left, he saw the entrance of a ticket booth, the glass smeared with blood, but it seemed empty. He lunged for the door, throwing his body against it and slamming it shut behind him, leaning his back against it. The small room felt claustrophobic as he lay on the floor against the door, breathing hard. The corpses began to bang on the glass, the thumps echoing through the station.
Oh, that was good thinking. Lock yourself into a small room. How the hell are you gonna get out of this one, you idiot? Fuck!
For several hours, Abbot was crouched within the ticket booth, watching the bloody hands banging against the glass. The sound was deafening. As the cries and moan from the dead erupted over the banging of the window, he looked around the small compartment for somewhere to go, somewhere to get out of his current situation. As his eye darted around the small claustrophobic room, finally it rested on a small red box on the wall opposite him. A fire alarm. Perhaps if he pulled it, it could distract the dead long enough for him to be able to sneak past. Or so he thought to himself as a large crack appeared in the window as the corpses pushed against it, desperate to get to their meal on the other side.
Oh, God, I hope this works.
Abbot lunged for the alarm, smashing the glass and pulling the small lever inside. Suddenly, the station was filled with a high-pitched scream of the alarm as it echoed through the massive structure, bouncing off the walls, filling every space. He turned, staring out the blood-covered window, watching the dark shape shuffling away from the compartment and towards the tracks. He let out a sigh of relief as it appeared his path was clear. He pulled down the handle of the door and opened it slowly, creeping out, slowly avoiding to make any noise. Enough of the rotten attackers had moved that he could see the box on the floor clearly. He jogged over to it, picking up the container and clutching onto it like it was made of gold. He slowly made his way back to the compartment, pushing the door open and slowly closing it with his foot. He dropped the black metal box on the counter and used the butt of his pistol to break the lock. After 3 well-placed smacks, the lock clattered to the floor. He slowly opened the box like it was a chest containing a long-lost treasure of a forgotten tribe. In his mind, it was illuminated with a bright yellow light, and the thought made him chuckle slightly. Inside the box sat what he'd come all the way into the station for, what the sergeant had trusted him to find, his ticket out of this nightmare.
Are you being serious? All this for a pen drive, for God's sake! Abbot to Atlantis.
Abbot, what the hell happened? Are you okay?
If you can call running from hundreds of walking corpses and locking myself in a ticket booth, okay, then yeah, I'm peachy.
I will allow that sarcasm because of the stressful situation. So, did you manage to get the box?
Yes, I got the box. Can't believe you sent me down there for a fucking pen drive. Kind of anticlimactic, if I'm being honest with you.
It's not the size that matters, Abbot. It's what's on it that counts.
I've heard that before. More often than I'd like to admit.
This is brilliant, Abbot. Look, a helicopter's coming for us, to take us to London. The rendezvous is at the castle. You have to get to the castle.
Would it not be easier for me to go back to Atlantis? And we can go together?
Well, no. I'm not at Atlantis at the moment. Just get to the castle, Abbot.
Hold on. What do you mean you're not at Atlantis? Sir? Sir! Ah, for fuck's sake.
As he pulled the metal door, the creaking was drowned out by the sound of the alarm. He noticed that the large group of dead were now distracted by the speakers where the alarm seemed to be coming from, grabbing at the air, chomping at nothing, their dull groans barely audible. He made his way up the ramp and out of the station, making his way towards salvation.
The Fallen, an Eerie Earth production. Written, directed and edited by Kieran Begg. Starring Rick Oldroyd as Abbot and Kieran Begg as Sergeant O'Connell. Thank you very much for listening, and be sure to follow us on all social media and head over to eerieearth.com for more information on The Fallen. Thanks very much for listening.